This is the War Room Roundtable podcast, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant businessmen and women on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on the road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their successes into your life and business. The War Room Roundtable is brought to you by your hosts, Jason Miller, CEO of Strategic Advisor Board, and Phillip Lanos, CEO of Own the Rhythm, and former podcast host for Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine. Welcome to the War Room. Carol, it's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we got off to a great start, the three of us here. And I think it's only right that we do it in the fashion that we have with everyone who's been on the show. Do you yourself come from a family of entrepreneurs?
I do not. I come from traditionalists and people that took the conventional route, and I never had the intention ever of becoming an entrepreneur. In many senses, I've always taken the mindset of I was accidentally put into the role of an entrepreneur. So it's been an interesting journey because it's a different mindset.
Yeah, I like the language you use, specifically like traditionalist, because there's sort of the implication that you choosing an alternative path or falling into an alternative path may have created friction, but which only further enhanced the decisions or influenced the decisions you made. Is that sort of what happened?
Well, my mother, who was my biggest influence, passed away when I was 19, 20 years old. So I didn't have a safety net, and my parents were divorced. So for me, losing the primary parent in your life at a very young age, I assumed I didn't have a safety net, that every decision I made would be based on survival. And that's a different mindset to have. And when you've been raised in, you have to go to college, you have to get a job, you have to get married, you have to have kids. And that's a normal formula. That is a very traditional way of looking at life. But the reality is that isn't the only way of looking at life. And when this world of being an entrepreneur opened up to me, gosh, the opportunities were just so vast. And I never even thought about them until then. And so it opened up a whole new world for me. And it was really, it was very challenging because you're trying to get rid of that traditional mindset. And when people are, and I had mentors, obviously, going into being an entrepreneur, and they'd explain things to me and I'd be like, I don't even know how to get my head wrapped around that, but the more and more you get trained in it, the more and more you see how many opportunities are really out there. I feel like in that traditionalist viewpoint, everything is very confined in a box. Like you can't go outside the box. But everything that an entrepreneur does is outside of the box. And that's, it is a different way of looking at things, and so much more hopeful than if you had followed that conventional mindset.
Absolutely, well said. And it's rare for me to come across someone who can put it in words how I felt like most of my life, also growing up without parents predominantly, just having that experience of like every decision I make is based off survival. And the earlier that happens to you in life, the more it impacts your decisions as an adult. So I think it was very important that you said that. I rarely had the chance to get that on tape, but it's so important because so much of what is an entrepreneur is also this constant creating the path as you're walking it, literally moving the cement every step that you take over to the next step. Isn't that accurate?
Oh, yes. And a lot of like falling flat on your face along the way, and because it's just, it's a constant testing of your theories, right? Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, that's not going to work. But the quicker you find out that it's that particular concept fails, the easier it is to adjust and refine it and do the next thing, right? And I think it's just, for us, it's like being inventors. You just keep doing it over and over and over and finding that correct path for you, because what's correct for you might not work depending on the industry you're in too. So everything is dependent on you and your creativity and how far you're willing to take it, and the perseverance and the ambition and the drive and the passion behind it.
Yes, yes, and yes. We were just having a conversation about entrepreneurship and creativity 3-4 calls ago. So let's keep the narrative going. So that's what happened. That's the origin point. The tragedy strikes, and where you said you found mentors, and was it through their companies and that you got your start, or were they pushing you to start your own company? What did that?
No, actually, I started it well before then. So I had already established myself. I accidentally, like I said, came onto this entrepreneur thing, but it came after my mom passed away. I was basically becoming a doctor. So I was in pre-med, but when she passed, that was really not my dream. And I found out very quickly, my heart wasn't there. I mean, I was doing it because I was good at math and I was really good at science. And so, I excelled in school and I had grants to go to med school. But at the end of it, it really wasn't something I wanted to do. So I found myself at kind of a crossroads at that point. What do I do? So I changed my major to business. And I think there was a little bit of, my mom passed away when she was 47. And for me, by the time I got divorced, I was in my early 40s. So there was a part of me that was like, well, shoot, if I follow my mom's path, and I live till I'm, let's just say 47, is this where I want to be in life? And that was a question I had to ask myself. And I wasn't happy where I was at. So I found myself divorced. I found myself alone again. I had 2 children. I had to make a living. And so it came down to, well, what am I going to do? And I actually started doing something out of the norm. And my family, like my brother and everybody, thought I had lost my mind. I was having a midlife crisis. Went down my bucket list. That's literally what happened. I went and rode motorcycles, learned to ride motorcycles, never even had a manual stick car in my life, had to get the whole concept of gears and RPMs and everything just laid out in front of me. I became personal goal for me was to become a racer. And that took me down a path of like something I loved and fulfilled me. And then from that, it became a passion, and I actually built a business around it. So I already had the business built when I bumped into my mentors. What I was struggling with was how to make it an actual thriving business. And that was where I was stuck, because I was dealing with competitors. And obviously, being in the sport that I am in, it's very male dominated, and it is very much a boys' club, of which to them, I was a newcomer and a female. And so I kind of had 2 strikes against me there. And they thought, we'll give her some hardships and she'll just bounce out. I'm not a bounce out kind of girl. So throw some challenges my way. And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to fight this. Because I've fought my whole life, I'm not about giving up. And I felt too, at that point, I had established myself within the industry as a female. And if I could elevate myself to a position where I could help other females, navigate our industry easier, I wanted to be that person. So that's how this all came about. And then they kind of helped me navigate the really choppy waters. And one of the things they said to me that I couldn't forget was, you're playing on a rigged field. You're playing on their field. You will never win because they will keep changing the rules. So our strategy is we create our own playing field. They can't play because they don't know the rules. So that's what we did.
Yes, and more yes. I don't know how many other places I've heard this. Even some comedians, like, they do it backhandedly, but they do talk about it, like Bill Burr, sort of, where he says there's this idea that the WNBA, needs to be supported because, you'll see if you follow the dollar, predominantly by and large, the demographic that is female will support a reality TV show before they support WNBA athletes. And yet those WNBA athletes are crushing it, doing so much. And he said, instead of wondering what's the NBA going to do about it, why not everybody just go directly to the WNBA or start your own thing, support your own thing, don't let others in on it, it's your thing, or something like that. So I really, if I understood correctly what you were saying, I really admire that that's what you ended up doing. And you said, okay, well then I'll just build a house over here and you're not invited, and
the
hey,
party's over here now,
tough toasties to them. And that is entrepreneurship 101, right? You're like, opportunity, I don't see it, the one that I want, guess I'll just have to build it. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. So with their help, we've elevated it even further. And it all came around with the fact that, you are in obscurity and you have to gain that acceptance. And there's a lot of resistance along the way. And I dealt with that. There was some really sparse years, obviously, but in those years, we kept re-strategizing. And I think we're building it to a point where the strategy we have for next year is even better. And that's what's important, is to keep building on your experiences. Most people will give up just prior to that success because they just feel like, oh, it's too many times. But at a training event this weekend, one of the things that my mentor brought up was, 7-Up didn't become a hit until it became 7-Up. It started up as 1-Up, and then they did 2-Up, 3-Up, 4-Up, 5-Up, right? And 6-Up, and then they gave up and they sold it. And then they added one more ingredient. They called it 7-Up, and look at what happened. So they said, the reality is it takes up to 6 to 7 refinements before their success.
Oh, wow. I never loved the soda more.
I didn't. So that's a great example of not giving up, right?
Yeah, no, I thought Heads Up 7-Up was just a game that was based on a soda, but that looks a lot different when you hear the story behind it, which is sort of the value of this show in general, is you look at people different when you get a chance to see sort of how that connects, because here you are now, right? And the work that you're doing is truly changing things as MotoVixens, right? And the things that you're doing. So with your podcast, even I see that you have a podcast as well. So, and which makes sense. I saw the mic and I was like, oh yeah, you're serious.
I have one too.
So for me, then the question is, now that you're here and you're doing what you're doing, what should the listener know about what it is that you're doing?
For me, and not just MotoVixens, but in the other companies I've created, the different platforms, they are all interrelated, and all of it has to do with really bringing forth entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and young up and coming entrepreneurs, and giving them a platform to shine, and mentors, and finding ways to help them navigate the choppy waters, because we've all done it. And if we can help, somebody and be their mentor, I think that's our responsibility. It's our duty to give back.
I love that you do that, because there's another person I know who's on this show right now that has multiple companies that are all about giving back and somehow intertwined in a win-win-win. And I feel like I've been hogging up a lot of the conversation. I'd like to check in with Jason.
Poor Jason. He's just nodding his head, smiling.
See?
No, I love the whole, because when I created the strategic advisor board model 6 years ago, right, around this results-based consulting model where we didn't get paid if we didn't help the client win, right? Everybody said it's gonna fail, it won't work, why would you want to do that, all these things, right? And it's just because a lot of people, they're not confident in what they were doing. And I was totally confident. I was like, whatever, I'm going to do my thing, chicken wing. Right. And that's what we did. We did that. And, fast forward 5 years, and I got more phone calls to buy me out and shut me up than could have asked for. I mean, it stroked my ego a bit, but it was good for that. But more than anything else, I love to say, weren't you one of them? You were one of those that said this wasn't gonna work, right? Oh yeah, I remember you. Well, guess what? Here's a
That's the ultimate like revenge, right? Isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And when you have the acceptance, even from your naysayers from the past.
Right. Yeah. It's a good validator, right?
Yeah.
It validates that, it's not about ego or any of that, but really what it is it validates in your own heart that you may have done more good in a small amount of time than the good they've done in 30 years.
Correct.
And there's something to be said about that. And I'll say it again, because I've said it like 6 times already today. And that is lead with value for however long it takes. That's it.
Yeah.
And
it has to come from the heart, really. Yep. And what you did came from the heart. So I think that was the fast track right there. Most of the time, I think, and no slight to the guys, but the vast majority of women entrepreneurs that I deal with, we do things from the heart. And it doesn't financially help us immediately. However, in the long run, I feel like it has stability. So
Absolutely.
there is just most of the entrepreneurs that are women that I get involved with are the ones that we both started out. Well, actually not both, but the ones that did this all started out with the idea, build it, and eventually the money will come.
Yeah, no, I can already think of a number of people I want to make sure that I send your way just because you have a similar mission. In fact, when I was a part of Entrepreneurs podcast for Entrepreneur Magazine, there was a few people that I made those introductions for because they all had that same mission of creating and empowering that. And I thought to myself, well, being someone who has interviewed specifically this many people with that same mission, I would be remiss if I didn't go out of my way to make sure they all knew each other if they're on the same mission. And there are people in industries that know these opportunities exist, that know that these people could benefit from working together and won't even lift a finger to introduce them. And I just can't for the life of me figure out how that's even something that somebody can just leave on the table. It's about win, 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 because
but they're not part of that win-win attitude. They're a part of me win. I don't give a fuck about you. I hope
it's true.
You're right. Out if you want to.
No. That's really the sentiment, though, right?
yeah, it is, because really, somebody said the saying to me a long time ago. Nobody cares if you get ahead. In fact, they're happy you get ahead. They just don't want you to get ahead of them.
Yeah, that's a fact. That is a bona fide fact. I don't need any science to prove that.
Right. Everybody's happy for your success until you far exceed them. And then at that point, the little green-eyed monster comes out, and then they start, the chitter chatter behind you, the gossip, I knew them when they were this and that. And you far surpass that time frame. You might have changed as an individual. And what's sad is they hold on to that past that they knew.
Yes. And the real deal entrepreneurs, all they do is go, all right, time for me to step it up and go even further than I've gone before. And that's like the genetics of real entrepreneurs is they see someone else succeed. They go, yep, that's a great reminder for me to double, triple down on what I'm doing. And they're in their own lane as opposed to worried about, oh, this person's in my lane. Impossible. Your lane is your lane.
Exactly. People are so far more concerned about what other people are doing instead of focused on what they're doing.
Yeah, no. And in the spirit of that, if you could go back knowing what you know now to the moment when you found out, oh man, I'm going to be on my own here. I've got to do it all for myself. What would you say to yourself knowing what you know now about business, life, and entrepreneurship?
Don't give a shit about what other people think. Just do what you know intrinsically and trust your instinct, because there were so many times I didn't trust my instinct because I actually cared about what people thought of me. If I had just removed that, I could have moved so much further ahead in such a much shorter amount of time.
Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting that your journey starts off the minute you started hitting your bucket list. The things that you knew before you left, this is what you wanted to do. And it takes people way too long often to do any of that whatsoever. I can almost trace back specifically, things started changing for me the minute I wrote my first book. Even if it wasn't well done, I wrote it because it was part of my bucket list. I said I always wanted to do it. I got it out on my birthday a couple of years before the
Oh,
pandemic.
congratulations on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Just because I was like, it's on the list, I got to do it, right? Getting myself to write a second book is a different story. But that first book, though, I was waking up at 5 a.m. and I was committed, and I would write the words, and 500 words a day, 1,000 words a day, and it got done, right? It got done. And there's just something about keeping that promise to yourself and unfolding that path that changes everything for sure.
And I think it's a bit cathartic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know when I was set on my journey to write my book too, I was dedicated for 6 months straight. I slept, woke up, wrote, right? And that was constant. Sometimes I write till 2 or 3 in the morning. I had no life, but there was a cathartic healing that happened because in writing it, I finally forgave myself and I forgave all the people that harmed me along the way. And that was, I think, what needed to happen to let go of all that baggage that I was carrying up to that point, because now I can fly.
Yes. Yes. Like you said, don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. It's do what you got to do. And if you have to write to reflect and see, you know what, I really don't care what all these people think, and it's no big deal. I'm moving on. I'm focused on what I got to do. That's what you got to do, right?
It's your journey, and everybody else has their journey too, right? And it's up to them to figure out their journey, but this was mine.
Absolutely. No, there's some powerful stuff in this, and predominantly just in like the way someone has the opportunity to see things. I shouldn't say should, because that's a little much, but you have the opportunity to look at life in this way, the way entrepreneurs do. Like you said, everything is outside of the box. Don't live in there. Take a look at what's going on outside. So with that said, before I go over to the grand finale, right, I'd like to check in with Jason again, because I have no idea how much time I'm sitting here talking, and I know that Jason's got things to say.
Sorry,
well, I always got something to say. No doubt about that. But no, the one thing that my son said something a couple weeks ago or a month ago, whenever it was, and I don't know, I was upstairs complaining about something, or I don't even remember what it was that I said, but he walked up to me and he goes, "Dad, just do you, man."
Oh my God. From the mouth of babes.
from the mouth of a 6-year-old. Yeah. Well, he was 5 then, and I just kind of stepped back and I was like, "Wow, all right, I'm gonna do that. Thanks, boy. I'll send you a check for 10 grand. It's the best coaching I've had in years." But I think we get caught up in all this stuff, the news and politics and religion, and all this stuff is just like pounding us in the head. That's why I stopped watching TV in 2014. But all this stuff is constantly pounding us all the time, and we lose perspective of what our personal mission is to do on this planet, because we all have one. And I know what mine is. I'm very crystal clear about what mine is. And, but I think a lot of people aren't. And until you truly find that you find that personal mission, there's always going to be that little angst. And that's why the world's such a freaking angry place right now. And until everybody just kind of finds their way back to what it was, or what their personal why is, we're going to live there for a while. But I choose not to live there. I choose to live up on my mountain and ignore it all.
Mm-hmm. Be the little hermit sitting on top of the mountain.
Yeah, kind of. Because
what's going on down there? Yeah, it doesn't look so great there. So
every time I go down there, somebody honks a horn at me or yells at me, and it's not very much fun. So.
Well, and that's where I think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because those people are the people you are constantly surrounding yourself with, talking to. Their mindset's going to bleed into your mindset. It's going to cause you either to become very limited in your beliefs because they're a part of your everyday life, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with people that are always looking forward, that are supportive of you, that will constantly challenge you. And that's what I have. They're constantly challenging me to be better. And you don't want to be the weakest link. You always want to move forward and you always want to become better, know more, become more knowledgeable, teach others, mentor. I mean, that's part of our duties being here. So I think if you find yourself in that position, you might be surrounding yourself with people that you need to start cleaning house.
Oh, yeah.
I call it a curated phone roster. I have a very curated. If your name doesn't come up, I ain't answering.
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
Manicured phone list, I guess.
Yeah. Especially in this day and age, with them selling your phone number everywhere. You go, I can't tell you how many texts or LinkedIn messages or emails you'll get where you're just like, how do these people get my information? And then I remembered that I accepted yes to some terms on some app or something. You never know, wherever you did it. So there's beauty and also tragedy, as poems usually are, to this life technology.
Yeah.
But there's been some really interesting things happening with this conversation, this running theme. And it reminds me of sort of Joseph Campbell and his phrase of saying, follow your bliss, which is, similar to finding your passion. Part of the bucket list experience really started to open that up. And you see what happens the minute that you pursue that path, how things begin to unfold when you find your why, as they say. So I think those are all really powerful things. And with that, we can roll the drum here and bring it over to the grand finale.
Are you awake enough now to beatbox?
I don't know if this mic could support it. I left my mic in the
there it is.
But the grand finale for 1,000,000 points. If you'd be so kind as to indulge us, Carol, if you could have invited anybody dead or alive to be here today for this specific conversation concerning the things that we talked about, who would you have loved to have had here to be a part of this and contribute even potentially, and why them?
My mother, man, she was my support no matter what, and I lost a big portion of me when she passed away. So if she had been here to share in the successes, I would have loved that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer because it's true. You never know who's there for you, what your life looks like right now. And then if you were to remove one or two people from that, how that would drastically change the world that you live in. Everyone on this call, I know, is familiar with that feeling. And so what was her name? Let's give her a big shout out.
Jenny.
Big shout out to Jenny.
Yeah.
Huge shout out.
Yeah, seriously. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm very grateful that you indulged every crazy question we threw at you. I loved how honest you were about everything. And I'm gonna let Jason roll us out as usual.
Yeah. I love these are the conversations that I love because that's the like-mindedness of people. And, it makes it's not even hard, right? They say, do something that you love and wake up every day. And when you do that, it shouldn't feel like work, right? Well, that's how my every day is. I love that. I wake up jazzed to do stuff like this. because we don't always get to. Technology gave us these awesome touch points that we didn't used to have, right? So now it's like we get to do all this synergizing together and finding out who we click with and who is like, oh, that episode sucked, let's put that one in the tank, right?
Yep.
all those things, right? We'll put that in the lost files. So
Filler
all
files.
yeah, right. So there's it's just such great synergy. Thank you for being here. It was wonderful having you on the show, and I look forward to actually meeting you in 3D probably in October.
Yes, sometime soon would be great.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the War Room Roundtable with your hosts, Jason Miller and Phillip Lanos. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and always remember, if you can dream it and believe it, then you can go achieve it. We'll see you in the next episode.